Hello and welcome back to the painting of the backpack for the next episode of this prequel to my Space Marine Librarian May painting challenge. And today we're going to look at the actual base coat, which will be this imperial blue color, straight up. Well, it's thinned down, of course, with some acrylic medium and a little bit of water. And it might take more than one coat, but that's absolutely fine. I'd rather have several thin layers of paint on it than have it obscure detail with too thick a coat. So I'm just applying it on a less important surface first here to see how well it covers. And fairly well. I still think it'll take more than one coat, but that's okay. I've now switched to a size 0 brush as opposed to the size 1 that I used on the former coat. And picking up some paint here and carefully applying it. Now, when I say that I use medium, it's this stuff here, Thinner Medium by Vallejo. It doesn't really matter which brand it is. They're all pretty much the same. Well, no, some people say that certain mediums have different consistencies than others. That might be true. I don't know yet. I might find out in the future because I have no particular brand loyalty. In fact, whenever I run out of a paint or a product of some kind, when I need new brushes or new mediums or whatever, I tend not to get the same as I had before. I tend to want to try something new. I like to test new products that I haven't used before. And like I said, this will probably take a couple of coats, but it's drying very quickly on the model, so it might go by relatively quickly. Anyway, so perhaps I should explain what I'm going for with this coat. I am intending to paint basically everything except a few surfaces. First off, any deep recesses like these little holes and the portion in here in between. Oops, now I got some paint in there. Did I? No, it's just water in the brush right now. Haha. In between the actual body of the backpack and these little jets. This stuff down here will be left dark. And also any area that is, well, any surface that is vertical to the presumed direction of sunlight. That is, if any surface that is going straight into the sculpt, like the sides here, that will not get painted because light will not hit that. And I pick up very little paint in my brush each time, because when it is this thin, it can get away from you, which I don't want. I don't want to have to go over any areas again a second time. Well, I mean, I don't want to have to reapply the dark color. I mean, that would suck. So I'm going in between these holes, and well, you get the picture. I don't think I need to show you every minute of this. I can just cut the video now, come back when I've completed the first coat, show you what that looks like, and decide if I need a second coat. So, be back in a second. And this is the first coat done. It's dried pretty quickly, partly because, as I said, it's thin, and partly because I'm painting on very strong lights. I don't know if the camera can pick up the difference in color. We'll have to see. But it is there. It's very slight and subtle. But I will put on a second coat. So just let me do that, and I will again be right back. So after a second coat, I really, really hope you can see the difference. Look at the difference between this area and down here in the crack between these two areas. And also, perhaps if I angle it like this, you can see the difference between the areas that are exposed to light and these, as I said, vertical planes that shouldn't receive any light. Anyway, it's time to start highlighting. To do that, I'm mixing in to the Imperial Blue a little bit of the Magic Blue, which is just it's a pure blue. It's a primary blue color, as basic a blue as you can get, sort of in the mid of the blue portion of the color wheel. And it's good for highlighting up dark blues because it doesn't have any hint of other colors, and it means that you will simply get more blue. And let's see what happens if I start applying a little bit of this to, well, let's start with the difficult portion first. Let's start with this rounded surface. I don't want to go all the way down to where next portion starts, but almost. And perhaps I should explain what I'm doing here. As you might see, I'm not drawing a line across. I want the light to be coming from this direction. Let's see if I'm in frame. Let's see if we can see. Here. The light is coming from above. And it's not... So I'm starting with the tip of the brush where I want the highlight to start, and then pulling it towards the light. Because when you the stroke of the brush deposits more paint at the end than at the beginning. At the beginning and at the tip there's very little paint, which means that more paint will wind up here on top than down at the edge where it meets the previous color. Also, doing these short little strokes like this, it's known as feathering. It provides. It means it's not the sort of interface between colors is not a straight line. It's more of a ragged edge, kind of like the feathers at the edge of a wing. And this helps to blend it in. Feathering can mean a sort of different technique as well, which I also do sometimes. Feathering can mean that you, let's see if I can show you this on the other one, that you just deposited a bunch of paint here, and then you take another brush and you sort of fuzzy up the edge where the two colors meet. And this other brush, this is a good reason to have these double-sided Games and Gears brushes. I simply flipped over to the other one. This other brush is just slightly damp. It can't be completely dry because then it'll pull paint off the miniature. But it shouldn't be wet either because then it'll flood the miniature with water, and you don't want that either. But anyway, now I've explained the basic principle of the thing to you, and I don't think you need again to see me applying the entire layer. Just try to remember what it looks like right now, and when we come back it will look slightly different. And the first highlight has dried. It's time to bring on the second highlight, which is even a bit lighter. And we're going to apply this very carefully. I don't know how many highlights I actually want to do on this guy. Oops, not in frame. You can't see what I'm doing. And right now I'm kind of even feathering out towards the edge here so as to leave a little bit more of the previous color in towards that dark facet. Sort of edge highlighting, but not quite. I'm considering, yeah, as I said, this is just flying by the seat of my pants. I haven't made very many, if any, final decisions yet on what's going to happen with this guy. I'm considering, for one thing, whether to actually finish the highlighting in this video, because it's already running a bit long. It's going to be longer than the 10 minutes I said I wanted my videos to stay at. And also, I have to consider, well, let me put it this way. Let me pull out another model. This is another blue Space Marine. This is a, well, as you can see, probably it's a Crimson Fist that I painted some while back. And he's kind of somewhat brighter blue than this is currently. In fact, the final edge highlights on this are pretty much straight magic blue. And the question is, do I want to bring this up to the same kind of color, or do I want it to stay darker? I'm not sure. I'm heading that way right now. But it can always be brought back down. I can always, when I've done the highlighting, decide to do a glaze of my base color, the Imperial Blue, and to tone everything down and to unify the colors a bit more. Like I said, I still don't know what I want to do. But let me put on this highlight and I'll get back to you in a moment. And that's that highlight done. And you know what? I'm putting on one more highlight just to see what it's going to turn out like. And this is just going to be a top highlight. So it's being done in the method I described, the second kind of feathering method I described earlier. I'm kind of placing a little blob of paint here on the top of this. See exactly where the sun would shine down, right just over here. Then I switch to the other brush and I just kind of blend in the edge here. This is kind of haphazard, but then nature is haphazard. So that is fine. And I'll be doing something similar, just stroke here on the top. On these, when you don't, the reason I did that particular kind of blending was because of the kind of surface it was. It's this rounded thing and it doesn't have any clear delineations. It's really difficult to highlight. But here, where you have kind of an edge, you can just sort of drag the brush along here and just generate a little bit of see, it's the top here. I'm keeping my highlights as close together as humanly possible, no big jumps, so as to make this process a little bit easier. And I don't think I'm adding any more down below. I think I've decided not to go with any edge highlighting. I've come to feel that I don't like. I know it's traditional for Space Marines to do edge highlighting, but, and like you saw, I did it on this old Crimson Fist, but I don't know. I think I want to try to go for something a bit more natural this time, but I will add a few spots here and there of this highlight, just in corners and the like. This portion down here would not be hit by as much light. If you're thinking zenithal highlighting, it would just not receive as much light, and these things in between this would block light from reaching the lower areas, realistically speaking. But I do want them to sort of jump out a little bit at the viewer. So, yeah. You know what? I feel like I should stop here for today. So, what do you guys think? Do I need to make him as... I don't want to make him as bright as this. But is this a good stopping point? Do I need to tone it down anymore? Because I should decide if I want to do the glaze thing. It's easier to do it now, before I've painted in the other bits and bobs. It can be done later, but it would be more finicky. I also need to decide about this skull. There's a few skulls, 2 small skulls and a big skull on one shoulder of this miniature, and I'm waffling back and forth on what color to use for them. The most common choices, I suppose, would be either a bone color, because they're skulls, or a gold metallic, because they're not real skulls. I mean, this is too flat to be an actual piece of an animal, of a human skull. It's just something that resembles a skull. And gold is a nice complement to blue. There's outliers. You could do it in red, for example. Red seems to complement blue nicely in some cases. It's not a complementary color, technically speaking, but it works dramatically with blue. Let's say that. But no, and on this one it's silver metallic, but that's because there's not a whole lot of other silver on this mini. This one will have a lot more silver. For example, I'm painting, well, we'll talk about that tomorrow. So something other than silver. But yeah, I think I'm going to have to sleep on this. So, until tomorrow, this is Dakian, signing off.